Mr. Gujral.
Mr. Speaker, sir,
Please, order, please.
I rise to support the motion seeking confidence of this House in the Council of Ministers and the Prime Minister. I rise.
Sir, order in the House.
Please.
I rise to support the motion, and not only because I am a member of the Council of Ministers, but also because I believe in what this government did and has achieved. In a way, I wanted to open the presentation of mine by reminding the House that we are this year celebrating the 50th year of Indian Republic.
क्या हो रहा है?
Please. Those who want to leave, please leave quietly.
Sir, I was saying that I was hoping that in this 50th year of Indian Republic, the debate that we would have would be of an order to befit the dignity of this House.
Yes.
And I was hoping the speeches that we delivered here would enlighten us, criticize the government policy wherever they need it, but also come and assess them in a correct perspective. Unfortunately, as yet up to now, this point, I find it missing. My friend and my young friend, I would say, Shri Das Munshi, is an old colleague.
Let there be order first. Lunch break हो गया?
Please.
I was saying, sir, that I heard a great deal of attention
You will continue after
to
lunch.
the speech of my young friend, Shri Das Munshi. And I call him a young friend because I was one of those who saw him coming in youth Congress. His fervor was always there. But generally, fervor didn't travel upwards. This unfortunately continues to be his accomplishment even now. I was all the time trying to find out what was he trying to tell us, what was he trying to convey to us, so that we from our side could also tell something in defense of that. The only point that I could pick up, and I will attend to it slightly later, is that I think he must be the single person in whole of India who believes that India has been isolated today in the world over. I don't know if he was present last week in Delhi when the non-aligned conference was there. I hope he knows that 113 countries were present in the non-aligned conference. I hope he knows that 113 countries represent 2/3 of humanity, and they had come here not only because they wanted to honor India, they came here to pay homage to Jawaharlal Nehru. And I was hoping, if not for my sake, and if not for Deve Gowda's sake, he would at least pay some compliments for Jawaharlal's sake, who was author and mother and father of the non-aligned movement. The non-aligned movement conference here reiterated three things. It reiterated the unity of the developing world. It reiterated the unity of those countries which at one time or the other were victims of colonization. It reiterated the united determination of all these countries that they would resist the pressures of those who are trying to hegemonize the country and create a new order which is not acceptable to the vast majority of the people. I was expecting a word of praise from him. And I was hoping that while he may not, I said, praise the government or the Prime Minister, he would at least try to recall that Jawaharlal's legacy thereafter. In this 50th year, and I will leave it at that, isolation, if he means isolation from those who live in Washington, yes, we are isolated. Perhaps to a degree.
It's not audible.
Is it working?
Somnath Chatterjee is speaking, discussing, and that is coming on the mic. That is
All right.
the problem.
I think always.
All right.
He is always wrong.
I thought that will be an advantage to you. You come to know his secrets.
Sir, this debate today, and I'm not going to give more of my time to what my worthy friend has said. I think this debate is very important for us to keep in focus the issues that are involved and go on talking about the issues. And if I may say so, sir, when I talk about the issues, we must understand the policies which for last 10 months this government was trying to follow. I say with satisfaction that the policies in sphere of foreign policy particularly that I am trying to focus on has been applauded the country over. It is a fact that the accomplishments and the achievements in these 10 months had 3 basic dimensions. We were keen from the very beginning, and we continue to believe the Indian foreign policy must enjoy consensus of the nation. And it has. And I pay compliment to my friend Atal Bihari Vajpayee on one side, Narasimha Rao on the other, and on our own side, many parties that composed it, that every major decision that we took, that was backed by the consensus. What were the major decisions we took? The first major decision which was taken by us was pertained to CTBT. The idea of CTBT was born in this house itself. And I remember when vote of confidence about the BJP government was going on, or perhaps by Narasimha Rao, by Devegowda government, my dear old friend Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji has drawn my attention to it. And we had made a commitment on the floor of this house that we would uphold the dignity of the country. We have. We have unified the nation behind CTBT. We did not yield any pressure from any side. Many pressures came, some punishments also came. And one punishment which came was in the form of defeating us in the Security Council. We took it in a stride because we knew it all the time that when you take a dignified stand and when the nations stand up like this unitedly, then of course we can stand up and look after ourselves. Therefore I would say this thing, the second dimension of Indian foreign policy has been continuity. Continuity from Jawaharlal Nehru's days to today. And this continuity includes the regime in which Atal Bihari Vajpayee was a foreign minister. I am not referring to 13 days of his prime ministership. That also was important. And therefore, when Jaswant Singh was a while ago talking about the criticism of what we were doing about the neighborhood, I'd like to read something, sir, for your interest and interest in the House. And I quote, attempts to drag India's relations with other countries in election controversies by Shrimati Gandhi and her companions have been serious setback to the process of evolving a consensus-based foreign policy. Their allegations that Janata government, of which he was a foreign minister, Janata government sacrificed national interest, became extra accommodative towards our neighbors with a view to earning cheap and popularity is entirely baseless. The interests with different countries in this part of the world are independent and they can progress mainly on the basis of mutual cooperation. Being a large country, it is a good neighborly relationship with the adjoining smaller countries, unquote. This is a resolution of the BJP, not my resolution. And is it a continuity, the policy that we have been following? Is it not something which Jaswant Singh now sees flaws in? Is it not a fact? And I say in the House that when we signed the Bangladesh Treaty, I say with courage and assertion that every political party of India backed it. And that is why we succeeded. And I take pride in this, not because of personal pride. It is pride of India. It is pride of the nation that it knows when to stand together and when to differ. We differ in this House on several things, but increasingly and every time we have felt that while crafting the foreign policy and diplomacy, both the legacy, the continuity and the consensus have to be preserved. And we have preserved it. We have honored it. Therefore, from CTBT down to Bangladesh Treaty or any other thing, I can claim, and I hope my no honorable friend will differ, that any issue where we have not consulted the opposition on one side, our collaborating partners, the Congress included. So therefore, for Congress friends to say that they were not consulted is neither fair nor true. They were consulted on every foreign policy issues in details. and also shared documents. Shared documents with also Atalji, with also the parties that sit behind us. And that is how we have been building foreign policy. And therefore, let us now keep in mind the fact. Basically, the foreign policy of India was neither born in 1980 nor born in now. It was born in the freedom struggle itself. And I do not know whether my young friends participate in freedom struggle or not. I belong to their generation, and I look at Chandrasekhar also, they're sitting there. We belong to that generation which had the privilege of participating in the freedom struggle. During the freedom struggle, we spelled out our foreign policy. What was the foreign policy that freedom struggle spelled out? Freedom struggle spelled out independence of action, autonomy of choice. And therefore, while the word non-alignment may have been used later, this was spelled out in the freedom struggle itself. And therefore, I say with great deal of courage and assertion that is the choice we have preserved. That's the choice we have preserved while joining the CTBT and rejecting the CTBT. You will kindly recall there were those outside the world who look at the world as their own hegemonic belief. They thought that India ultimately will yield at 11 hours and 59 minutes. 11 hours and 59 minutes came and went by. India did not yield. And I think this government has reason to feel proud of it. That no pressure of any type, no cajoling of any type in the freedom struggle itself. And I do not know whether my young friends participate in freedom struggle or not. I belong to their generation, and I look at Chandrasekhar also, they're sitting there. We belong to their generation which had the privilege of participating in the freedom struggle. During the freedom struggle, we spelled out our foreign policy. What was the foreign policy that freedom struggle spelled out? Freedom struggle spelled out independence of action, autonomy of choice. And therefore, while the word non-alignment may have been used later, this was spelled out in the freedom struggle itself. And therefore, I say with great deal of courage and assertion that is the choice we have preserved. That's the choice we have preserved while joining the CTBT and rejecting the CTBT. You will kindly recall there were those outside the world who look at the world as their own hegemonic belief. They thought that India ultimately will yield at 11 hours and 59 minutes. 11 hours and 59 minutes came and went by. India did not yield. And I think this government has reason to feel proud of it. That no pressure of any type, no cajoling of any type, no punishment, if I may say that, of any type could make us bend. And for that, I would say this thing, that I do, it's not a personal credit to me, it is a credit to the nation. Also, let us be fair and let us be honest that the Prime Minister leads the country at this moment, the credit goes to him. Because he stood for these policies with me, and that is how we followed the policy, and my cabinet colleagues stood with me on these policies. Therefore, I would also say this, that from day one, it's important for us, and I think we should keep in mind the fact that from Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru to Deve Gowda, and I repeat, national consensus has been preserved, should be preserved. Anybody party might come and sit here, and it should happen, it can happen in democratic policies, that parties can change. But I know that foreign policy of India, no worthwhile person would say. Prime Minister Narasimha Rao is sitting here. Prime Minister Narasimha Rao in 5 years, what did he do? He followed the policy. Also, he is the vision. Many times he asked Atal Bihari Vajpayee to go to United Nations. Many times he asked me to go to United Nations. Many times he asked us to go to Geneva. Why did he do it? Let us understand, he was also upholding that legacy. And that legacy was that when you come to foreign policy, don't look at it as divisive. Don't look at it in the sense of one party versus other. Look at it in
Mr. Gujral, you can continue after the lunch.
After the lunch. After the lunch.
Would you like to conclude it in 10 minutes now, maybe?
No, lunch.
I'll come back at lunch.
After lunch? How's
That's what I'm saying.
श्री आई के गुजराल मिनिस्टर कोई नहीं है भाई
He is the minister.
मैंने उनको स्पीकर समझ लिया ना बोलने वाले थे हाँ गुजराल साहब बोलिए वो क्योंकि बोलने वाले थे इसलिए कंफ्यूजन रहा ना
Is it working now? Because I'm told it's not working. Is it all right now? Can you hear me?
से गुजर रहा हूँ ना, इस गैर कानूनी।
Sir, I was, before the lunch break, I was drawing the attention of this House and you, sir, as to how Indian legacy beckons us to craft the Indian foreign policy. This beckoning is not coming to us today. It came to us during the freedom struggle itself. I think Indian freedom struggle, I was saying, had one unique feature. And that unique feature was not only non-violence and satyagraha, but also that we decided all our policy frameworks, thanks to the leaders of that time, who were able to visualize as to what type of Indian foreign policy would they be. One of the important factors in that foreign policy they had believed would be that Indian foreign policy must be independent. It must not be influenced by anybody. It should decide all its decision in the interest of the nation and what the government of the time perceives and the nation of the time perceives to be national interest. I had submitted, and I repeat, the fortunate part of our legacy also has been that ever since the days of Jawaharlal Nehru, all those who occupied the seat in the Foreign Office and also Prime Minister's office upkept this legacy. This legacy basically was that we in India had suffered a great deal during the colonial era, and therefore we had a great deal of affinity and friendship and cooperation with those who were also under the colonial yoke. That is why you will recall, sir, and now since the 50th year of that, 50 years ago, Asia Conference was held here. In the Asia Conference, Jawaharlal Nehru and Gandhiji had visualized that Indian freedom struggle, Indian freedom would never be complete till all countries are all colonies are decolonized. Not only that, they also at that time associated themselves in their freedom struggle with the independence of India with the apartheid in South Africa, where color discrimination was taking place. Therefore, in these 50 years, whoever came to office, and I pay compliment to all my colleagues on this side and opposite, that all of us primarily attached importance to this dimension of Indian foreign policy. The word non-alignment was called kind much later. We will decide on issues as they suit us, and we have done it. This is a legacy that we are trying to preserve, and therefore, when I have said often in this House, and I repeat, that Indian foreign policy has to preserve that legacy, uphold it, and also at the same time sustain a strong element of continuity, and also, more important, consensus. I think whatever our differences may be, as I said a while ago, and I repeat, that this is an interesting dimension of Indian democracy and our strength, that whatever our differences may have been on various issues, broadly speaking, on foreign policy, this nation has been backed by the national consensus under all governments. And a while ago I had read here, and I don't want to read again, the statement even by the Jan Sangh at that time, in 1981. And therefore that I see is the central point of Indian foreign policy, and it continues. Having said that, I would also like to keep in mind the fact that those foreign policy legacies are something which have to be kept upkeep. Panditji had spelled out a great deal for us, and I think this nation will always remain grateful to him, that his vision, his commitment, his courage had to stand up and fight back those who were trying to hegemonize him was always kept in mind. Some people felt that perhaps in the Cold War era we were on this side or that side. No, we were always on the side of India and not on the side of this side. You will kindly recall, sir, Stalin had called Jawaharlal Nehru the running dog of imperialism. Dulles had also bestowed similar categorization of Jawaharlal Nehru. But Jawaharlal Nehru was never influenced by these, not discouraged by these. Now a point has arisen also where we have also tried to spell out, if it is consensus, then consensus also has to be spelled out. How do we implement consensus? I paid a while ago a compliment to my colleague Shri Raoji. When he was Prime Minister, he also activated it. Often Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee was sent to United Nations and to the Human Rights Commission in Geneva. I also had the same privilege. And I think we did it not because we agreed with their politics, We did it because it was in broad national interest. And that is the line that in this government has continued to follow as well. This also gave an important message to the world as a whole. And the world as a whole felt that when Indian government speaks, India speaks. And that is what I said gave us courage to resist all the pressures on the CTBT. And that is how we will continue doing. That was the first challenge that we have met. We come across a new situation now. New situation is that unfortunately this neighborhood of South Asia has been often damned as an area where always perpetual struggles and wars and difficulties could continue. How to change it? I had spelt again, and I think Atalji will support me on this, that this was his policy also. This was his policy when he went to Pakistan. This was his policy when this resolution was passed. This was his policy when he was foreign minister, and I had the privilege of being his ambassador in Moscow at that time. And I know what he was thinking. About Russia, for instance, the people might talk about Russia today, but this is the background. I hope Atalji has not changed his mind about his own role of the past. The main point basically remains, and that is that this neighborhood is extremely important for us. And unless, therefore, we are able to befriend our neighbors, we will not be able to release our foot or the hand from this neighborhood politics. Chandrasekhar in his own time did try to do something. Each one of us who has come to occupy, we have tried to do it. Sometimes successful, sometimes partially successful. And it has fallen to my lot this time, and very fortunately, that we have covered some ground in that. Our relationship with Bangladesh today is very positive, friendly, and we place great deal of hope on that. Our relations with Nepal have transformed in a big way. Our relations with all our neighbors, including Sri Lanka, including Bhutan, including every neighbor. But now we are dimensioning our dimension, and the concept of our neighborhood is extending. We are a large country, we are a big country, we are an important country. And therefore in that dimension, our neighbors also are not confined only to South Asia. We look at neighbors in the ASEAN. With the ASEAN, now we have made a new relationship, that is that we are their full dialogue partners. We are also members of the ARI. And that is now a new dimension opening for us. We have also looked towards the north. Central Asian countries are our neighbors. So in coming days, Central Asia is coming very important, primarily because the 40% of the gas reserves of the world are in these countries. And therefore the future of energy is here. Apart from other cultural relations, apart from our historical relations, apart from what we have built over years, even in the Soviet era. And we have seen, sir, now it's very interesting, this government, 3 months ago, we signed a tripartite agreement with Iran and Turkmenistan. What did that agreement mean? This agreement means that now we can reach Central Asia, and our goods can reach Central Asia by railway through Iran and reaches Turkmenistan and all Central Asia. I was recently in that region, and I was told the distance is cut by 3 weeks, and our goods don't have to go now via Odessa. It goes by this. This agreement is a new dimension of our neighborhood policy. With Iran, we had been having difficulties in the past. Fortunately, that era is past. We also have problems with Afghanistan. Afghanistan policy for India is both positive and helpful. We do not want Afghan people to suffer. They have unfortunately suffered for last more than 2 decades. First the Soviet attack, and later on other things that are happening. We strongly support the idea that in Afghanistan we should let the people of Afghanistan decide. Nobody from outside should interfere. And the fact is that outside interference is there. I do hope things will change, but our line continues the same. I would also like to draw your attention, sir, when I'm talking of neighborhood, I am also drawing your attention to Indian Ocean Rim Conference that has recently been formed. India's initiative, once again, catalyzed this, that 14 countries of Indian Ocean Rim are now in one association. And therefore India expands that side also. So you look at India's now expansion of interest is on one side the SAARC as a hub, ASEAN on the other, our relations with Korea and our relations with Japan on the other, and then we go towards Central Asia. And from Central Asia, Iran, we travel towards the Indian Ocean Rim, and therefore let Indian economy and Indian influence act as a hub. And this hub ultimately builds your foreign policy. This, and my friend had said that we are isolated. I do not know if this is isolation, then what is activity? I take credit for this government on one point, and that is that this has been a proactive policy. It has never been only a reactive policy. On every issue of the world, India has taken active interest and has been appreciated in that context. I would also like to say this thing. How have we done it? It is not because we were a strong government. It is not because we were on our own. It is because India has now acquired enough self-confidence. Our economy has acquired self-confidence. India now behaves like a big power here it should, not to bully others, not to hegemonize others, but also at the same time, in the context of again Nehruvian era, we use our influence to befriend people, to help them. My friend sometimes, just one thing had expressed, and I regret how he said it, that why did we give water to Bangladesh? India must act as a big country, with big heart, with big economy. India today occupies 76% of the land mass of subcontinent. Its economy is 85% of the total economy. And unless you conduct your policies in that visualization, you can never befriend the neighbors. We have suffered in the past, and I don't want to criticize the past, but I think it is time that we look at it in a differentiation. India, therefore, can afford to be liberal. India can afford to be large-hearted. India can afford to act in a big way with the tradition that we have. Indian tradition has always been, ethos has been like this. All our ethos, cultural, civilizational, has always been go out and help. And that is how India had made mark in the past. The concept, therefore, I would say, has extended itself in various dimensions. I should also mention, I don't want to take your long time, sir, about our relations with China. My friend Jaswant Singh again had talked about security. Yes, no Indian government can ever be oblivious to the security interests. But security interest does not always mean buying more tanks. It does not always mean raising more armies. Diplomacy has only one dimension and one objective in life: how to turn enemies into friends and how to turn friends into close associates. And that is what we have been trying to do. And that is what we are succeeding. That President Jiang comes here and he tells us that he looks at India differently than he was looking 20 years ago. Not that everything is sorted out. It has not been sorted out. But we have now the courage, the capacity, and also the policy to defend ourselves. We are not offending people. But we also understand this thing, that any country's future depends upon security equilibrium. We have a very outstanding example, sir, from which we should learn a lot. The example of Soviet Union. Largest army in the world, largest equipment, and the country collapsed. You cannot have a country security on this basis that if you go on acquiring more hardware, then I do not want to talk about our neighbors, but you know this thing. Economy of a neighbor, in what shambles is it? Because they have been buying planes by starving their own people. It doesn't help. Ultimately, you come to a stage when you realize the total concept of security has to be different than what has been projected. I want to take a couple of more minutes, sir, and say 2 or 3 points. I mentioned in the beginning that it is not only that Indian foreign policy is confining itself to neighbors. We have extremely good relations with America today. But for this debate, I would have gone next week, and my appointments with the President and the Secretary of State had been fixed, but I had to cancel it because of this debate. Why were those appointments fixed? They are having a more positive view about Indian foreign policy. For the first time, they are realizing and appreciating that India has the courage to go out and help and give a helping hand to its neighbors. And that by itself has won us laurels and also support. They have also seen that they cannot bully us. And CTBT was one outstanding example. They could not. Therefore, now a new type of equation is taking place. Whether I talk of America or I talk of in terms of Europe, we are now having a relationship of equal, dignified friends. We can be. But at the same time, we have the courage and we have also the capacity to keep our heads high. I think, sir, one point I would like to say, and I don't want to further take your time, and that is that we must keep in mind the fact, as I said, that the vision of the future apart, the legacy of the past, particularly in this year of 50th Republic, years of Republic, is important. And when I say this thing, my mind goes to Jawaharlal Nehru's famous words, and I like to quote him. Jawaharlal Nehru said, and I quote, the freedom that has come to India by virtue of many things, history, tradition, resources of our geographical position, our great potential, and all that inevitably leads India to play an important part in the world affairs. It is not a question of our choosing this or that. It is an inevitable consequence of what India is and what free India must be. And because we have to play inevitable part in the world affairs, we have another and greater responsibility. And therefore, it is that sense of greater responsibility that we are now thinking. Sir, these 50 years of Indian Republic and next century is coming, we have to spell out for ourselves what is our vision of future. And again I quote Jawaharlal Nehru. Jawaharlal said, destiny has cast a certain role on this country. Whether anyone of us present here can be called men or women of destiny or not, I do not know. There is a big word which does not apply to average human beings. But whether we are men or women of destiny or not, India is a country of destiny. And so far as we represent this great country with great destiny stretching out in front of her, we also have to act as men and women of destiny, viewing all our problems in that long perspective and destiny and the world of Asia. This is what Jawaharlal has bequeathed to us. This is our responsibility. And this is our responsibility as a nation, not as a party, not as a government, but all of us together. And therefore, I would only say this thing, that again I go back to ethos of India. And ethos has been is summed up, sir, in one couplet in Urdu, if I may say so. It says that koi bazm ho, koi anjuman. Koi bazm ho, koi anjuman. Ye shaur apna kadeem hai. This is our old civilization. Koi bazm ho, koi anjuman. Ye shaur apna kadeem hai. Jahan roshni ki kami mile, wahan ek chirag jala de. This is India's policy. This is India's future. And that is what we have upheld, and I promise we'll uphold. And this nation must uphold.